The Internal Christ and the 40 Hz Frequency. A short documentary by Trevor McGrath. For entertainment purposes only. There is a divine activation that the low tone of 40 Hz can bring about in the human body. In recent years, unbeknownst to the general public, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology found some very interesting effects take place when the human body is subjected to the frequency of 40 Hz. This tone was found to significantly increase the flow of cerebrospinal fluid within the brain. It was concluded by Mitchell Murdoch of MIT that since 40 Hz caused the arteries to pulse faster, it resulted in the increase of cerebrospinal fluid clearing. This increased flow of cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, can aid in the removal of waste products that are built up in the brain. This frequency has been found to be beneficial for people with Alzheimer's disease and any other neurodegenerative disease due to the fact that it facilitates the glial lymphatic system of brain cleansing and also clears amyloid plaque buildup in the brain, amyloid plaque being a main cause for Alzheimer's. 40 Hz is also known to help the body produce and activate microglia, which is a type of glial cell. Glial cells are electrochemical cells, therefore implying that 40 Hz can cause the hormonal and chemical balance of the listener to be optimally regulated with repeated use. Also, glial cells produce the myelin sheath which wraps around and protects our nerves, hinting at 40 Hz playing a potentially positive role for anyone experiencing some form of nerve damage. 40 Hz enhances synaptic function, increases the number of astrocytes and increases the diameter of the blood vessels, causing the blood to circulate more optimally. Another key aspect of this frequency is that it has been found through EEG testing to activate the frontal lobe of the brain. The implications here are enormous, given the frontal lobe can only be activated when the amygdala is calm and no longer firing retrogressively towards the reptilian brainstem. To clarify, this implies that 40 Hz can help bring the listener out of their trauma loops by centering the cerebral activation towards the front of the brain. The frontal lobe is the area in the brain where clear thought, compassion, and socializing are fostered. The frontal lobe has direct neurological wiring to the heart brain and the gut brain, integrating the three brains of the body into one experience. It's fair to refer to the heart and the gut as a brain due to the fact that they both create their own network of neurons. The frontal lobe is also the physical correspondent to the soma chakra, a chakra located between the third eye and the crown. This chakra plays a huge role in producing the etheric, golden, liquid light which is otherwise referred to as the Christos. And herein lies the reason why the title of this video includes the phrase Christos oil. The anointing, which the Bible and several ancient Gnostic traditions from all around the world acknowledge, is a divine substance that is within us all. The implication that Christ or the Christos oil is literally within each and every one of us. The cerebrospinal fluid, or Christ oil, germinates in the gut, and for this reason I find it quite fitting that 40 Hz in musical terms resonates as a very low E note. The note of E resonates with the gut, or solar plexus chakra. So to simplify, we can say that the 40 Hz E note resonates in the area where the cerebrospinal fluid germinates, where the inner Christ is born. The eaves of the manger are correspondent with the rib cage and diaphragm, both having an arc shape like a manger, and both are just above the solar plexus region where the oil is born. This oil correlates with the cerebrospinal fluid, which flows over the surface of the brain, bathing it in an etheric golden light, and also flows along the spinal cord while in the subarachnoid space. It is the glial cells, or Mother Mary in this case, which are responsible for producing or birthing this Christ oil or cerebrospinal fluid within the guttural solar plexus region of the E note. The glial mother also regulates the flow of the CSF. This can determine the overall health of the central nervous system. To elaborate on the anatomical science a bit more, the CSF leaves what is called the subarachnoid space, then flows around the roots of the spinal nerves. To add biblical and allegorical credence to this view, the book of Matthew has a passage where it reads as follows: "Now 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept." The cerebrospinal fluid is to the oil what the lamp or light of the vessel is to the pineal gland. So here we can see a rather undeniable correlation between 40 Hz and this mystical view on the inner Christ, due to the fact that they both imply the cerebrospinal fluid. To be clear, MIT is not making any claims about metaphysics in their studies, but what can be rightfully interpreted from their studies, if seen through a Gnostic lens, is quite revealing. From a spiritual perspective, it feels accurate to say that 40 Hz moves the Christos oil through the body and facilitates the production of the glial cells or Mother Mary, which births the Christ. In Greek, the word kryo means to smear or rub with oil. None of this is an attempt to imply that 40 Hz is our only access to Christ consciousness, as access to such a concept is our birthright and can be done through intent alone. For the sake of expanding on this topic, I'll say the relationship between sound therapy and spiritual embodiment should raise an eyebrow, as these two concepts have likely gone hand in hand longer than we have record of. 40 Hz falls in the range of the gamma brainwave, a state which has been found as the predominant brainwave of Tibetan monks during deep meditation. Gamma facilitates a state of epiphany through hyper-awareness, as opposed to theta, where one receives epiphany via receptivity. This gamma brainwave has been found to make every part of the brain communicate with every other part of the brain. This results in full brain integration and, perhaps in more heightened forms, extrasensory perception. This brainwave is also said to speed up the healing process. On a side note, it might be worth researching the G breath, as this breathing technique can facilitate gamma and can even cause trace amounts of DMT to release without relying on an external catalyst. 40 Hz is optimally beneficial for overall healing of one's cognition. It is also beneficial for memory, mental clarity, and deepening our perception of reality if it is accompanied by a healthy amount of theta brainwave activity. In terms of memory, this can take a more metaphysical bend towards opening one up to the Akashic records, a state of divine remembering, or epiphany. It can resonate with the gland known in Latin as epiphysis cerebri, which is also known as the pineal gland. Therefore, it resonates with the gland of epiphany, among other things. According to certain schools of thought, the pineal is akin to the place Peniel mentioned in the Bible, where Jacob meets God after climbing the ladder. This brainwave state can integrate sensory information, which comes with a long list of implications in the realm of spiritual abilities and experiences. Synesthesia may come to mind with the more extreme forms of integrating sensory information. These high-frequency gamma waves have been found to ride upon the much slower theta waves. This coupling has profound effects. The gamma spikes within the theta waves account for memory chunks, or bits, whereas the theta waves account for long-term memory. Disruption of theta-gamma coupling can result in neurological disorders such as Alzheimer's disease, ADHD, and schizophrenia. It's said that the shaman swims in the same waters the schizophrenic drowns in. This can be interpreted in a way that shows how both access the same realm of high intelligence and mystical consciousness. However, one has the slower wave of theta to ground it into reality and the other doesn't. An interesting side note. I recall hearing somewhere that 40 Hz can potentially, in the right conditions, create an altered state of mind which might allow us to perceive extraterrestrial and paranormal activity. There is much more to be said about the correlations between the Christ oil and the body, how it germinates in the solar plexus region as the supreme atom, how it can be risen through astrological timing relative to the moon being in your sun sign while fasting in a dark space, and how the place where Christ was said to be crucified or multiplied 1,000-fold was at the 33rd vertebrae, or Golgotha, meaning place of the skull, the place where the Christ oil rises up to. However, I wanted to keep this as a relatively short video to drive a new point home. That point being, the fact that 40 Hz directly facilitates this concept of Christ oil. Of course, too much of anything yields ill effects, so I'm not promoting the idea of listening to 40 Hz all day long to expedite spiritual embodiment, as Icarus fell from trying to obtain the sun itself. However, this very low tone can be a tool of sorts to help with various different ailments and can influence the CSF or the Christos in a way that is not only most profound but backed by science thanks to the researchers of MIT. They do not draw any correlation to the metaphysical aspects of 40 Hz, at least not in any outspoken way, so that's what this video is for. To display yet another fascinating bridge between two studies that have been seen as opposites for far too long, spirituality and science. Though scientists can be wrong in their conclusions, science itself is never wrong. Scientific results are never incorrect so long as the method of approach is unbiased, repeated, considerate of variables and kept solely objective. Whether we are talking about the scientific findings at MIT, Gnostic mysticism, spiritual embodiment, or UFOs and spirits, 40 Hz is a common thread and a topic that calls for a lot more consideration than it currently receives. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and please feel free to subscribe to the channel and look through my other videos. There will be much more to come soon.